like that gateway drug for sure. No, but that's really cool, man. You know, I worked in the Haynesville Shell, you know, kind of when it kicked off back in 2005, 6. And we had a real issue with that as well, right? Because they didn't expect those kind of pressures. And I remember how lots of money got spent on sending guys back around to retorque and respec and have job books and all that. So really cool solution. I'll evangelize it. All right, next I'd like to bring up Harsh Kumar. He is the North American leader, industrial sector for IBM Digital Strategy. Harsh is passionate about helping C-suite executives reinvent their business and solve their toughest problems. He brings a combination of strategic, operational, and digital expertise to provide leaders with complete and sustainable solutions. Prior to IBM, he worked in the manufacturing industry and later in strategy consulting for numerous companies. He currently leads the digital strategy practice for chemicals, petroleum, and industrial products at IBM. Thank you.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. All right, thank you. I'm excited to be here today. Welcome to the energy capital of the world, Houston, Texas. We have a much larger showing here today compared to yesterday. We had 40 or so people. I did the same presentation, so you'll get to see a little bit more detail on this presentation. As you can see from the topic, from strategy to quantum, probably these two words have never been put together in the past. So I'm going to try to talk about the two ends of the spectrum in the next 30 minutes. Working with IBM, we bring the entire suite of solutions from strategy to cognitive, to artificial intelligence, to machine learning, to quantum. And I'm going to talk about three topics today. But before I get there, I also have three polls. And we're going to do these polls on a live basis. The first question is probably the easiest question of the day. And the question is, for how long U.S. has been a leading producer of crude oil in the world? And we have three options: for more than 10 years, for less than 10 years, but not more than 5 years, and for less than a week. It's not a trick question. You can see the results live here. And this will also give me a head count of the room, so if anybody leaves before the third poll, I'll know. All right, so we can stop it here. So 41% believe that it's less than a week, and that's actually accurate. You know, when I started making this presentation a few weeks ago, we were not. We were actually number 3, and just in the last week, by the time I was done with this presentation, U.S. is the leading producer of crude oil in the world. And that is a good segue into the agenda for today. You know, we are living in fascinating times. The last 15 years have been radically disrupted by oil and gas producers in the United States. A lot of things have changed, and we're going to talk about how technology has made an impact on oil and gas industry, how these industries have converged. We'll talk about capabilities. In my experience as a strategy consultant, I've worked with scores of different oil and gas companies, and what I believe what makes a company successful in the long term are the capabilities that they focus on. And then finally, we'll talk about technological solutions, which I know you're all excited about. Is good to have technological solutions, but as we heard in the previous presentation, 55 minutes of thinking and 5 minutes of doing. Now that's why we're going to focus a little bit on capabilities in the middle section. We're going to have a poll after that, and then we'll end with the solutions and have 4 videos which I'll show of real solutions that we're bringing to the market. All right, so the state of the industry. A little bit busy chart over here. But as you see on the left-hand side, U.S. has been the leading producer of petroleum products for the last 5 years or so. But through sheer grit and determination of companies like yourself and the U.S. producers, U.S. also became the leading producer of crude oil last week. The news actually came out this weekend. And if you think about the implications of this, I mean, some of you have been in this industry for a long time and you've been monitoring the geopolitical events and the macroeconomic events which happen as a result of who ranks where in terms of the oil and gas production. One of the implications of that is on the top right chart. You will see that our imports have dropped from 10 million barrels per day to 3 million barrels per day. And if we stop and think about that just for a moment, I mean, every product we consume, from the cars we drive, to the laptops that we are working on, to the phones, to even the food that we eat sometimes, is either produced or manufactured in a different country. It's imported into the United States. But when it comes to oil and gas, when it comes to the gas that we are putting in a car, it's more than likely produced not too far from you. I think that is fascinating. And on top of that, if you see the chart on the bottom right, US producers have a strong incentive to export their petroleum products because we actually will make profits by exporting those products. The lighter the shade is on that map, the cheaper the price per gallon of gas is. Even in Mexico and Canada, it's much higher than the United States. For example, in Mexico, it's $5 per gallon of gas. So overall, the message I want to convey from this slide is for US producers and for companies like ours. It's a very positive environment. Despite what is happening in the auto industry with the self-driven vehicles, despite what is happening with the growth in renewable energy, and despite all the hoopla around the fracking industry, the next 20 years are going to be strong years. It's going to be profitable years if we plan right, which we'll get to in a few minutes. Okay, so this was the news which came out last weekend, and 41% of you knew about it. Okay, so it begs the question, I mean, all those trends which we saw on the first slide, it begs the question, what happened? What changed in the last 15 years for us to be in that dominant of a position? And it also begs the question of what's coming next. I mean, as smart people, as leaders in your organization, we got to think, what will happen in the next 15 years? What happened was, like I said earlier, through sheer grit and determination and through operational excellence methods, we completely changed the way we work, all the way from exploration to drilling, to cementing, to fracking, and to producing, and after that as well. When you think about going from vertical wells to the horizontal wells, multi-pad drilling, number of drilling days coming down from 50 to 15, fracking stages going from 10 to 40. I mean, we have completely changed how we actually produce from a well. But I also believe, more importantly, that we are at a point of diminishing returns. I mean, how much more can one get out of operations? You can probably go from 10 days of drilling to 5, but the effort one will need to put to get there will be much more. So the return on investment will not be as high as you had in the last 10, 15 years. And on the other hand, what's coming next, when you think about technology, although technological advancements have been happening for the last many decades, but the oil and gas industry is just catching up. If you compare oil and gas industry with the other industries, we're still pretty much at the bottom of the barrel in terms of absorbing technology in a holistic fashion across our processes and people. I know this is a pretty busy chart, but you probably have seen these charts in the past. The power of technology, the speed and memory have gone up, not by a factor of hundreds of thousands, but trillions. The cost has reduced significantly, no matter how you look at it in terms of number of transistors or the calculations you can do per second. And we all know the number of connected devices is increasing in an exponential manner on a day-to-day basis. So as a result of all of that, and you are probably from some of these companies here, companies have taken small and cautious steps of using technology, be it Internet of Things that we are talking about today, be it artificial intelligence to do predictive analytics, or blockchain for consortiums. Lots of companies have taken steps in the right direction, but still, based on our conversations with executives, we still have these three issues. All the costs are going up. You talk to any CEO, they'll tell you cost of people is up, cost of rigs is up, cost of raw materials is up, cost of suppliers is going up as well. So all the costs are going up, and as a result of that, despite the increase in price of oil, your margins are shrinking, and they'll continue to shrink. Our assets are depleting. All the knowledge workers who have been in this industry for the last 30, 40 years, they're retiring with all that rich knowledge, and there is no easy way to transfer that knowledge to our young people joining the industry. And like the Shell folks were talking about in the last presentation, the assets are not new. Our equipment is not new. In some cases, we have equipment for 50s and 60s. And then finally, while we think of technology as a boon, it's also a curse, because where do you start? There's so many things out there. So when I think of technology or digital, the items on the bottom are what I call the ecosystem of digital, and basically there are four things: they're hardware, software, security, and rules. So as an oil and gas professional, and as you'll go out today in all these booths and you see all these solutions, is it really an advantage or a disadvantage? Like, how do you map all of that to the core strategic imperatives of your firm? So it's confusing. There's an unclear mapping of how all of this could be done. And on top of that, no one company provides you a full suite of business solution, not technological solution. I think as engineers, we have a fascination towards technology, and we talk too much about technology without really understanding the business impact of that on our companies. So with that, I mean, that was the end of section 1. The message from that section 1 I wanted to give to this audience is that the market is strong. We are in a very positive market, but the challenges remain. And now for the next 2 sections, I'm going to focus on what we can do about those challenges. So let's talk about capabilities and solutions. Why capabilities? The analogy I'll make for capabilities is like going to the gym every day and working out and having discipline and rigor. Versus solutions is like taking a health capsule and getting better for maybe 2 or 3 months, but getting back to your old health. It is imperative for companies such as ourselves to think about capabilities. I'm going to give you 5 levels of maturity of capabilities. The first 2 levels, we saw that a lot in the downturn. A lot of companies went bankrupt despite doing all of that, which is the headcount reduction, project deferrals, etc. We're not going to talk about that in more detail. But the next one, level 3, focusing on core capabilities. If you think about, let me take an example of IBM itself. I'll go through each one of these in detail. If you think about IBM itself, every time our CEO, Ginny, goes out for a presentation, we talk about 3 strategic imperatives: cognitive, security, and cloud. No matter which leader goes out in the market talking about IBM, we're going to talk about those 3 things, and those are our 3 core capabilities. And you, as your own company, should think about what are your core capabilities. These core capabilities are unique, they're complicated, they're difficult to emulate, they bring most of your revenue, and that's where you should be putting a lot of your investment in. Going to the next level, which is level 3+. At this time, you are, in addition to having core capabilities, you have a strong identity. And I'll prove it to you by an example. So just for 5 seconds, think about any company in oil and gas or other industry which you believe is successful. So think about a company which is successful from your experiences, and now think about what do they do. So you'll have 2 or 3 words in your mind, or 2 or 3 sentences of what this company does. But now think about if you go to a different part of the world, if you go to India, China, Mexico, and if you ask it different demographics what this company does, and if you get the same answer, then that company has identity. And I've given you a few examples here from oil and gas as well as outside oil and gas. But take Halliburton, for example. It doesn't matter if I'm working with Halliburton in the US, if I'm working in India. It's in their DNA to provide top customer excellence or customer service. Take Schlumberger, for example. It doesn't matter which part of the world you are in, innovation is in their DNA. That's their identity. And if you look into the numbers of their R&D spend by sales, it is actually highest amongst all the oilfield service and equipment companies. We have a company called Flowtech, which is using orange peel to put it in the slurry while fracking, which increases, you have documented evidence of increasing production. Their identity is product excellence. So what is the identity of your company? And then lastly, the last level of maturity is to have an operating model. Nobody does this. And people don't do it because there is no short-term gain from working on an operating model. And people feel that this is fluff. You know, like why should I work, for example, on my culture or people even? But the companies who are financially successful and have lived for a longer time, they continue to work on the operating model. ExxonMobil is a great example of that. And it's not fluff because when you think about the downturn, out of the 4 super majors, the only super major which was able to pay off its dividends and capital expenditures was ExxonMobil. All right, so with that, I'm going to come to the second poll. And the question here is, at what level of maturity do you believe your company is at? Is it at? Is it level 3, level 4, or level 5? And you can start polling now. If you go on slido.com and enter the keyword IoT, all right, so we can see the live polls. We'll wait for maybe 1 minute or so to see the results, and I will move on. All right, so that's good enough. And I'm not surprised by this. I mean, a lot of companies are focusing on core capabilities at this time. I am surprised by seeing that many, almost 10 to 15 companies here, which are still focused on rationalizing the portfolio. Okay, so with that, let's move on. Let's talk about solutions. All right, so anytime you see a lot of solutions on a page, there's a problem. There's a problem because one has not thought about how those solutions connect with your business case, with the strategic imperatives of the firm. So when IBM is thinking about solutions, we are thinking of it as an iPhone in the box, that we have a platform, and through that platform, we can download different solutions across different categories of oil and gas pain points. So for example, here we have exploration analytics, or reservoir analytics, we have equipment reliability, operational effectiveness, market demand analytics, and support services analytics. And we have around 50 solutions in these 5 boxes. And each of these solutions, I know this is really small, but each of these solutions we have made sure that they connect back to the EBITDA or free cash flow of your firm. Now, I've handpicked these 5 solutions. Given the market today, I believe that these 5 solutions have the biggest bang for the buck. Number 1 is reservoir analytics. So, back in the days, we had a geoscientist and geologist looking into well logs, and it was a mixture of science and art to find out where the oil and gas is. And based on that, we were trying to determine where to drill. So all of that has been automated. For the last 2 years, we have invested millions of dollars into this solution so that you can use data, you can use like well log data and the data from the acreage you might have bought to give you a heat map of where oil and gas is, so that you know exactly where to drill. The second and third one, so we had a good discussion on equipment reliability in the first topic today, but that has been a problem for the longest time. I mean, we have had maintenance, reactive maintenance in the industry since we all have been in this industry. And now we're using artificial intelligence for predictive analytics, be it a pump or an engine or transmission or an ESP in the field. Those solutions are mature. You know, it's not like we have to get the data and train the data and then we can use that model. A lot of these cognitive models have already been trained. Supply chain and manufacturing, all the way from understanding the demand in the market, so forecast your demand in a cognitive way, to your suppliers, to the customers, to how you manufacture, both scale and utilization, to how you divvy up all of your suppliers and customers and strategize, and using cognitive across the entire value chain. The one which I'm probably most excited about is the integrated business planning. So here, you're able to take internal data and external data from market and from your competitors, and based on that information at the C-suite level, you're able to understand where to expand and contract in a market to improve your profitability. And at the regional level, you're able to plan better, because if you know how much I need to produce or provide to a certain region, you can have the right number of crews, right number of resources, be it people or equipment. And then lastly, I've clubbed all of the solutions, the next generation solutions, into the fifth bucket. When these used to be the unsolvable large problems, and when we talk about quantum or Summit supercomputer or blockchain, these are not next generation really anymore. I mean, on quantum, we have 1,000 projects. On Summit, we have 13 projects going on. And blockchain, we have a couple of consortiums that are already in works. So for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to show you some videos of these solutions. And then we're going to end up with a poll to see which one is most relevant to your company.
IBM is applying AI within the oil and gas industry to radically change the way work is done, resulting in increased cash flow and improved productivity. Exploitation and development of shale plays in the U.S. has grown substantially, but drilling and completion costs have continued to increase, squeezing margins for all organizations. That's why choosing the right location for new wells is crucial to improving return on investment for operators. Imagine using all the well logs along with historical production and seismic data on not only your wells, but all those within the lease next to you, to help you find the best location. Well, there's no need to imagine. IBM's Sweet Spot Finder enables geoscientists to become more efficient and more effective in the placement of wells. In fact, the prediction accuracy of the Sweet Spot solution has yielded a 90% accuracy for gas and 71% for oil, based on actual data gathered from users of this technology. The solution provides an increase in initial production per well, an improvement in the estimated ultimate recovery per well, and can allow a reduction in the number of wells for development. The combined savings from which can provide a payout on the sweet spot investment within a year, and providing an AI solution that will keep you ahead of the competition for years to come. For more information.
All right, so that was the number one, which we're calling Sweet Spot. It's on a platform called Watson for Natural Resources. And in summary, it basically gives you a heat map of oil and gas underground. This particular one is, we are working with the partners Weatherford, but we are also working with other partners in this area. This is using predictive analytics to predict where the failure may happen. I mean, it could be any equipment or component of equipment that you might have.
From the main dashboard, focusing in on failure management, the user can see the number of failures that are predicted in the next 15, 30, and 60 days, and also a history of how their failure management program has been performing by looking at the mean time between failure. Users can dig into this information by clicking on the MTBF tile or going to the failure overview page. Here they get a heat map that indicates where their failures have historically been, and they can also look into where is predicted to have the most failures in the future. They can choose any of the component groupings or well as a whole to see where their wells are most likely to have, for example, a pump failure. Once they see a well that they're interested in, so beam 75 here has the highest chance of a pump failure in the next 15 days, they can select that well and navigate to the failure analysis page. Here they can see some trend data to help them understand how this well has been performing over the last month or several months. And then they can also look at the historical well bore, so they can see over the last several months or years, whenever the well has been worked over, how the downhole components have changed on the well, and also what the root cause of the historical failures was.
This one is on supply chain. This particular platform, as I said, is Watson, and we are focused on particular components in supply chain with Watson. I would also like to call out a company that we acquired called Uniqua. Uniqua specializes in MRO optimization. So they have a wide portfolio across all the industries, but also a very deep portfolio in oil and gas. They have seen up to 40% inventory reductions. And I think the cool thing about them is that they're backward integrated. So if you have changes in your inventory, you want to change the min and max based on criticality or the demand, it will backward integrate to your ERP systems. And they are on our booth, so please stop by over there and have a chat with them.
Let's see how Supply Chain Insights works. This is the Operations Center dashboard. This is where you'll spend most of your time. The KPI widgets show the health of your supply chain. It looks like some shipments are running late. Let's take a closer look. Supply Chain Insights thinks Donaldson Suppliers is the culprit, so let's start there. Wow, Donaldson is running late on a lot of orders. You can see that your colleagues are already working on some of the problems. You're responsible for deliveries to Germany, so click the circle icon next to that row to open a resolution room. A resolution room lets you chat with colleagues to resolve problems. Now that you've opened a room, you can mention people to pull them into the conversation. And remember, you can always ask Watson for advice. When you've agreed on a solution, you can go back to the Operations Center dashboard where you're ready to tackle the next problem. As your supply chain data is updated, the dashboard will reflect the health of your KPIs. Supply Chain Insights. Complex, made simple.
All right, so this is, I sanitized this slide, but this is a solution that we're working with. One of the super majors is on integrated business planning. As I said, we can take information from all sorts of internal systems as well as external websites, social media, and predict what a company should do at the C-suite level in terms of strategy as well as at the regional level.
This is a prototype of our 50-qubit quantum computer, which is the largest quantum computer out there right now. Really, all of this infrastructure is built basically to support the chip, which is the computer itself, which sits about here inside of this metal container. And the reason it's all here is you want to isolate that chip from any form of noise. And the most dominant form of noise we're trying to isolate here is actually just temperature itself, the temperature of the room. So if this were running, this would be encased in a white shield that would all be vacuumed out to very low pressures. On top of this would be a 4 Kelvin, which is basically liquid helium temperature. Each of these plates has various dilution refrigerator pumping going on. It would be very loud in the room if it were running. and they get colder and colder. This is about 800 millikelvin. It goes down through 100 millikelvin. You get down here in the bottom, this is 10 millikelvin, which is 10 millionths of a degree above absolute zero. So really getting as close to zero as you really physically can at this point. The idea of a quantum computer is when, instead of having to go through serially exploring every single combination of numbers, by putting everything in a superposition of 1 and 0, you can essentially test all the numbers against a problem at once in parallel. So it gives you a massive parallelization. Areas you could use this in would be any kind of problem that involves optimizations or large search spaces. Quantum chemistry is a very good source for this because right now when we simulate molecules or atoms, the number we can do is very limited, which is based on the number of quantum states involved. This would simulate that directly. That's good also for things like drug discovery, new materials analysis, or materials discovery. And finally, machine learning, potentially using this to look at very large data spaces and be able to narrow down a problem so it becomes more amenable to doing more standard machine learning and artificial intelligence approaches to it.
All right, so that was a quantum computer. As I promised in the beginning, I've taken you from strategy to quantum in the last 22, 23 minutes. As you can see, we are working on a lot of problems on quantum, and it's an open source. A lot of people are working on quantum on different problems, but these are the ones which we believe are most relevant. The Summit Supercomputer, I'm going to go through these quickly because, we are still in a place in the industry where we first need to fix the basics before we can get to these technologies. It's not to say that a lot of companies are not using them, but my recommendation to most of the companies is before we start going digital, let's fix the basics. So on Summit Supercomputer, we have 13 projects running. This particular one is one which I wanted to highlight. It's mapping the Earth's interior using big data. All of these projects are online. I think they're all fascinating, and I'll urge you to look at them. So we're coming to the last poll of the day for this speech. So out of all of the solutions that you heard about today, which one is most relevant to your organization? Again, please go to slido.com. The keyword is IoT. All right, so not surprised, equipment reliability continues to be one of the biggest problems that we have. We have mature solutions, not just IBM. A lot of companies have mature solutions when it comes to predictive analytics. And I'm actually encouraged by seeing integrate business planning as the number 2, because for the given investment you will have in this solution, its returns are probably the highest. All right, so you can go to the presentation. All right, so how can you connect with us? Please stop by our booth. We have a robotic arm, which I think is pretty fascinating. Please have a look at it and what it does. We also have Oniqua on the table with us. Have a chat with them, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll put this presentation there so you can download it. And if you have any questions, feel free to connect with me on the booth or on LinkedIn. And with that, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.